All right, MYB, thank you so much for coming back. Episode 147 of the Minding Your Business podcast, entrepreneurship, real estate, trending news. There's no business like minding your own. I'm your host, Champ Ron. We're recording this on a Monday, April the 27th. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're out stimulating with your stimulus check if you've gotten it. If you haven't gotten it, it's probably on your way. What's funny is I got a message. My wife and I were looking at this, and I got a message just this morning that ours is coming April the 30th. So then I guess we'll be out stimulating however we need to stimulate. But as I've been saying on episodes, I hope that all of you are well. You're with your families, your friends, your loved ones, practicing safety as you normally would, pandemic or not. And just know that we will get through these times. Don't rush it. This is a serious thing, but don't feed so much into the fear and hysteria. There's still a lot of great opportunity out there. Shout out to those of you. There are many, many, many people that are listening to this podcast and maybe who aren't, that are out of work right now or business has been shut down. Continue to fight, continue to be engaged, seek the resources that are out there. Now's a great time, if you haven't, have a great relationship with the people that should be on your team, your CPA, your banker, your any legal counsel that you have. Stick close to those folks. They have access to a lot of resources, and they can be a support, and that's why you have them, your graphic people, your video people. Stick with those folks and continue to be your very best for yourself, for your family, and for your community. Okay? Our guest today, I'm so excited to have him. He's here from the Boston area, Roy Stein with BabelBark. Great app. And what we want to talk today is about our pet friends. So we have pet family members. I myself, I've got a 3-year-old Cocker Spaniel that runs around through here. I got him in Middle Tennessee back in 2017. He was a 6-week-old guy, and that's my guy. As you know, MYB, I'm here in the house full of ladies. I've got 3 daughters and a wife. And so adding my guy to our Mary Brew was great back in 2017, and it's been great ever since. But Roy, thank you so much for joining today here on the Minding Your Business podcast, and hope things are going well and you're safe where you are.
Thank you very much, Ron, and it's my pleasure. And I've got 4 boys, so I've got a golden doodle, beautiful daughter. She's exactly 2 years old, and as I said, I've got a house full of boys, and she's our daughter, and she's the princess. She can't talk, but I can tell you, she takes everybody around her finger.
There you go. Yeah, she's got you wrapped, and she's the boss, I'm sure.
No question.
2-year-old daughter. So, man, that's what's up, man. That's precious. Roy, let's get right into it. Tell us about Roy Stein and how you got to where you are today.
So I started out in the high-tech industry all the way back in the good old .com era that we all remember happily. It didn't end so happily, but we remember that era happily. And I was working at a large telecom company. I started out as a project manager. I moved to the US with them via an acquisition of a company, a subsidiary that was done in the Boston area. And I worked my way up all the way to being VP operations and then being VP Corp Dev. And then about 10, 12 years ago, I decided to leave the corporate world and move into startups because I was kind of enchanted by the ability and the flexibility of startups. And I always tell people the difference between corporate world and startup world. In the corporate world, you're going to get slapped if you go outside the lines. In a startup, you're going to get slapped if you stay inside the lines.
Right.
So I was really enchanted by all of that. So I moved into the startup world. And that's where I met my business partner, Bill. We've been together now. This is our 4th startup. Of the previous 3, 2 ended up being sold or acquired. Not necessarily by us, but over the years. And one didn't make it. And now we're here together for the last 5 years. We've built BabelBark, and that's where we are.
All right. Excellent, Roy. So let's dig into this, because many people, when they hear that, they look for business partners or they have business partners. But one of the challenges with entrepreneurship and business ownership is the trust and confidence, right? When you're working with business partners. Talk about how you and Bill came together, Roy, and how you're able to develop that trust and confidence because many people, that's the difficult piece. They want to partner, they want to collaborate, but they're very pessimistic, or they're harboring pains from maybe past failures. And
Yep.
then it's hard for them to let go. It's hard for them to have that trust and confidence. How did you guys develop that chemistry?
So you might find this funny, but I relate business partnerships to marriage.
Yeah.
And I would say, don't get married unless or until you find the person that you cannot live without. And don't build a startup until you found a partner that you cannot literally go through the day without.
Yeah.
Because especially when you're building a startup, and I come from big companies, Bill's background was in Microsoft, he came from big companies, obviously.
Yeah.
The difference between a small company, especially when you're building one from scratch, the amount of pressure, the amount of give and take that has to be done for years, not just for a small period of time, is so much that if you cannot totally rely on and lean on your business partner, you're going to die as a company, I mean, right? And God knows I don't know true in percentages, but I'm sure there's a very high percentage of startups that fail because of that internal, call it politics or call it whatever you want, but that, lack of chemistry between the people.
Yeah.
So my first and foremost recommendation, based on my own experience, is first, find a partner. Find a person that you have that chemistry with.
Yes.
In a different company, working as peers, working as, colleagues and all of that. And only after you found that chemistry with that person that you can really, lock your hands with and go forward, then go and build a company.
Yeah.
We've had team members, working with us over the last 4 companies. And I can tell you that when you bring somebody on board after you've created a company, great employee, great whatever, but they are not really in the trenches from a financial and pressure perspective as the founders. But when you have a team member that you've known for years, and now together with them, you're building a new company, then they're in the trenches and they're willing to pick up a lot of the pressure and a lot of the issues that come with it, because they've been with you and there's a chemistry and there's a long-lasting, long-binding relationship. So don't be fascinated by a good CV and then go and create a company with that person. Unfortunately, luck would, experience says that when they go and get stuff, that relationship will be really strained. Find a good relationship that you have and then together build a company. That's my recommendation.
Yeah, absolutely. Great stuff, Roy. And, one of the things that I'd equated to, like you mentioned with marriage, there's a lot of parallels. Marriage is built on trust, confidence, and respect, right? And so those are the 3 things that also business partnerships are built on: trust, confidence, and respect. And I've always said this about both. When you have that foundation that's built on those 3 things, what happens, Roy, is a tornado comes, figuratively, right? Not literally, but even literally, but certainly figuratively, when a tornado comes, life throws different things, the weather, the climate changes, and it blows your doors off. So it blows down those 4 walls and the roof. When you've got a solid foundation of trust, confidence, and respect, you can rebuild from that, right? And that's where you have that solid foundation on solid land. And so even as things are going well, when you go back to that base foundation, that's the strength of any kind of property or house, right? Is the foundation, right? That's where it begins. And that's where business partnership begins and transitions and ends. And then the same for marriage. And so it's interesting, those parallels as you draw on that. Roy, go ahead.
I would say, for me, in my experience, there's 3 main business questions that you have to ask yourself when you're building a company.
Okay.
And the first one is, what are you trying to solve for? The second one is, how are you going to solve for it? And the third one is, how much will people pay for it? And if you answer all those 3 questions, then you've got a viable foundation for a company. But more importantly, I can guarantee that in 110% of 110% plus of every company, those questions will change and evolve over time. And I've yet to see a startup or a company that 6, 12, or 18 months down the line are with the same product and the same business case as they were when they started, because that's life. If your partner, and that goes back to what you just said, on, if you don't have that love, respect, and confidence that you and your partner can adapt and pivot and change, and people that don't get stuck up on a specific issue or corner just because that's what I said 6 months ago and I'm not going to change it and that kind of stuff. If you don't have that relationship, it's never going to happen, because one thing is a given: you're going to make mistakes.
Right.
And you're going to make them a lot, and you're going to make them relatively often. That's the part of doing business.
Sure.
And if you cannot absorb those mistakes, and your partner cannot accept the fact that you are going to make mistakes, and you're going to accept the fact that he's going or she is going to make those mistakes, you're not going to survive.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think, again, that draws on the parallels with business partnership and with committed relationships or marriage or whatever the case may be. So Roy Stein, again, our guest today on the Mighty Your Business podcast with BabelBark. And so now you and Bill get to BabelBark. So you've launched companies as true entrepreneurs. You've launched companies, you've sold them, right? And so now you've got this entity. How does BabelBark compare with other startups that you guys had? How does it compare and contrast?
It doesn't even compare. I mean, it's a whole different level, and I'll tell you why. BabelBark was started more or less by mistake, and it started. We started it for our own needs. So the short version of the story was, we were going to go on vacation 5 years ago in November of 2014. And we were kind of worried about who will take care of the pets while we're away. And we were looking at, in the marketplace, what's available, what's not available. And there were great companies, great apps, all over the place. But all of them had the same single shortfall. They were doing a few things really, really well, but only a few things. So very vertically kind of minded. And it didn't make sense for us that we had to go through 5, 10, 15 different apps to get a full picture of what's going on with our pets.
Yeah.
So, Bill came up with the idea of, why not build a script that will pull information and kind of concentrate everything in one place, so that we can just, keep track of what's going on. The kids will have to kind of, download different stuff and put it in in a Google Docs or whatever. And that Google Docs will kind of be a platform for us to understand what's going on while we're away. And that seemed like, a great idea. But then we took a step back and we said, hold on. If we need it, everybody else probably needs it as well. Right. And in this day and age, millennials and platforms, and everything is about platforms these days. Why isn't there any platform in the pet space? So we started looking at the pet space, and we figured out there's no platform in the pet space. Great companies, great apps out there, but not one. We call it the Expedia for the pet space, or the Reddit for the media, kind of, the same as for the pet space. One place that concentrates and aggregates everything you need to know in that sector in one place.
Yeah.
So we said, okay, we needed it for ourselves. Probably others need it as well. Let's just go ahead and build it. And that's what we set out to do. And that was the idea behind BabelBark. And that's how we came up with the idea. Now, because we've been building it for our own use, and we ourselves are the first critical users of every feature and every capability, it's really a change from former companies which were more on the B2B basis, were more in the energy space, were more in the IoT space, were more in that kind of perspective. Here, it's a system that is built on both businesses, but those are the small independent businesses, the groomers, the walkers, the trainers, the vets, and for the consumers. But we are the consumers of our product first and foremost, and my wife and my kids, and Bill's wife and kids, and our friends and our closest relatives and networking are, who doesn't have a pet these days? So we are we're building stuff for ourselves versus building it just on a commercial perspective. And that's where it changes versus other companies that we did.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a nice comparison that you draw, Roy, on your you and Bill's past entrepreneurship dealings and past startups to bringing it now today for BabelBark. And I love what you said as you and Bill being the initial end users, while you're the creators and the developers, you're also the first end users. And so that's unique, because oftentimes you find in startups, like you say, it's B2B, it's whatever it is. And so the creator is not the end user. And so it's hard for them sometimes to conceptualize, what the use is and have that organic feel as to, well, I like the way this is laid out. I don't like this. I don't personally like this. I don't think others will as well. And that's a different perspective sometimes that you get that I'm sure has been helpful as you've launched and continue to push the envelope with developing the app. And then also I think it helps you with that sense of understanding the end user and accepting their feedback, which I would assume that you guys probably do a great job of listening to the end user and then comparing that to your own use and saying, okay, yeah, I can see that, or maybe not quite as much, or maybe that's a phase down the line, that type of thing. So I
can tell you, we, both of us have kids in college age.
Yeah.
I've got two sons who are past college now, but I've got one in college, and Bill has his daughter in college, and the other one in high school. And I can tell you, when we're in our 50s, we're a different generation. When we look at some mock-ups that we're doing of a new feature or a new capability, and we show it to them, the kind of responses we get, and the eye looks, and you guys don't get it, you're so old, it needs to be like, and we're like, why is it bad? No, you're old coot, you don't get it. That's even before it goes to the developers.
Right.
So, because it's something that our own families use for our own dogs, and Bill has got an 8-year-old Lab Mastiff, I've got a 2-year-old Golden Doodle, so we use it for ourselves. It doesn't even, pass the red face test or the gatekeeping of our own families before it even goes to our marketing people to get their opinion on this kind of stuff. And that's a big difference from past companies, because it keeps us on our toes, and we can do much quicker development, because it's very easy. You do a mock-up, you show it to your own kids, you get a bucket of cold water on your head. Now you know what you need to change and go to a different kind of perspective.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. But that's good. And I love, again, with it being family, which we'll get to this in a second, but I love how you involve your family and some of the due diligence that goes into you guys' service. And so let's talk a little bit, Roy, about, the offering of BabelBark. And so, walk us through or kind of unpack for us, for someone that's a pet owner, what can they use BabelBark for? Why would they download it? Why would they use it?
So BabelBark is a platform. That's something which is very important to understand. It's not just an app. It's not just a back-end portal. It's a platform that has both back-end portals for the businesses and front-end app for the user, for the consumer.
Okay.
Let's start with the consumer. The consumer on their app, where the basic app is free to download on the Google Play Store, on the Apple App Store, they can connect to all of their service providers, their walkers, their trainers, their vets, their nutritionists, their whatever. They can upload all of the pets' foods and look at all of the nutrition and calorie content. There's just a drop-down menu with thousands of all the foods available in the market today. They can put in place all the medications, both over-the-counter medications like flea and tick or whatever, and prescription medications, including getting reminders of all of of when they need to give that medication. They can share their profile with different family members and providers. So when you go and you board your dog over the weekend, or you're going there to give it, to have your, children take care of it while you're going with your significant other out of town for a weekend, all those reminders, all those directions are all inside the app. You have your medical records, your vaccinations, everything else, everything inside the app. From the pet business perspective, the groomer, the walker, the trainer can now share with you and do online scheduling. So no need for those phone calls and those text messages anymore. It's all connected through the backend portal to the front-end app. Your vet can do telemedicine and telehealth and remote patient monitoring and activity tracking and everything else that you might need. So all of that combined together gives you a very easy way to connect everything you need in your pet's life and take care of it. And in addition, we have the premium level of the app, which we called Alpha Pack for the pet parents, that for the meager cost of $2.50 a month, you get an unlimited calls, 24/7 vet support line, lost and found services, and many kind of goodies like that, where, you know, your pet doesn't feel good. It's now 10 at night. Your clinic is closed. What do I do? Where do I go? You now have a hotline supplied by our partner, Whisker Docs. You can call them up. It's vets and it's vet technicians and nurses, an unlimited amount of times, and get all the support you need, as an example.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely, I can see that from the front user end, how having that you mentioned earlier, Roy, a one-stop shop, if you will,
Yes.
being able to get all that information, because I'm going to download it today, because even with my little guy, that's always a frustrating thing. Either you're going out of town or you're having to do stuff, and trying between my wife and I trying to keep up with everything that he needs, right? And what did he get at his last appointment? And if I wasn't there, I may not completely be aware of what he has to take, or this or that sort of thing.
Yep.
And to have a one-stop place to get all that information, to me, it is uber critical. So talk about it from then the other end of it. So you've talked about the front end user. Talk about the back end portal.
So the back end portal is a cloud-based portal.
Okay.
And if you're a veterinary clinic that is currently using any one of the practice management systems, we just connect to that. We don't replace it, we connect to it.
Sure.
Or if you're a groomer or a walker or a trainer that doesn't have any platform, then we give you a platform. It's very cheap. It's $29 a month in total flat rate per business. And that enables you to do cloud-based client management, have all your clients in one place, including adding notes and everything else on a per client basis. We send out automatic reminders for appointments, so you don't need to call them up. Some people, like, for example, you have to call every evening. You sit there next to the phone and you call people to remind them they have an appointment tomorrow. No need for that anymore. The system sends out automatic reminders. You can get payments instead of chasing after, payments today and checks. It's all done automatically on the system. You can do online scheduling. So you set up your services and you say, I provide service A, B, and C in these days, in these hours for that price. Your clients can just open up the app, see when you're providing those services, and just ask for scheduling and for appointments directly. So it saves you time and money in having to answer calls and schedule on the calendar. People can just schedule automatically like that. You can send out newsletters, you can send out articles, you can send out promotions and marketing material. You can do all that kind of stuff for your clientele, all very easily from your backend portal connected to your client's app.
Yeah, excellent. And so that streamlined piece of that, I think, is critical then, because like you mentioned, the back end user, the organization or the company, the service provider does not have to abandon or change over their core system or systems they're using today. You're able to then plug in that, I imagine, through some kind of API or something along those lines, that you're able to plug into that. And so I think that's a big piece of technology that sometimes can get missed, or creates a lot of opportunity that you guys have seized, which is that this communication between software, right, and between systems. And it always amazes me how sometimes that could be such a challenge, and how and my background's in banking, Roy, and so I can remember having all these systems we had to log into, and it being such a frustrating point as an end user working with a customer, when you have to log into this one to do this and log into that one to do that. And you're sitting there, now you've got 10 different systems, none of them talk to each other. You have to draw reporting from all of them. It creates this big ball of inefficiency.
Yep.
And so I love what your app does is it eliminates that inefficiency that could sometimes hurt, decision making. Particularly in this case, as it relates to your pet, which for most of us, that our pets regarded as a family member, just like anybody else, and so
Yep.
uh, having that in place, I think, is critical. And so, what do you see next for BabelBark? Obviously, you have how it's operating today. Roy, what do you see as next on the horizon?
So we like to think of BabelBark, we position BabelBark as kind of like the Expedia for the pet world.
Okay.
In the sense that, much like Expedia, we do not provide any single service ourselves.
Right.
We're not dog walkers, we're not trainers, we're not vets, but we provide the underlying infrastructure that connects everybody and everything in one place. We do not replace any service that that business or that pet parent is currently using, but we connect everything. Much like Expedia connects your flights, your hotels, your Sheraton, your JetBlue, your United, your American Airlines, your Avis, your Hertz, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
So as things go forward, we're adding more and more partners and more capabilities to the platform, because by connecting APIs to multiple different services, we can just enhance the amount of capabilities or offerings that our partners are offering. And I would use the current COVID-19 situation as an example. This really, really terrible and unfortunate situation has actually highlighted the capabilities of the system, because people are sheltering in place. Many clinics and many other services are also either shut down or sheltering in place. But the platform enables now the vet who's in their home sheltered in place to connect with the pet parent, share medical records, do telehealth if needed, do connected care and whatever, but also get information on the food, get information on diagnostics, get information from the dog walker who might not be sheltering in place, might still come and pick up the dog twice a week for a dog walk, but all that information is flowing back and forth, and that enables, a lot of capabilities that, maybe 2 months ago nobody thought they needed, but it's creating. And again, we're not replacing any one of them, but we're connecting all of them in one place, which gives them that ability to enhance, I call it teleservices. That includes telehealth, telemedicine, remote care, whatever that might be, but it's all teleservices from the comfort of your home.
Yeah, absolutely. And so definitely it sounds like you've got a great role and kind of grasp on, what you see next. For the platform. And that's a great way to put it. It's a platform more than just a kind of an end user mobile app, which I think gives it, some great longevity and some great upside.
Yes.
And so, as you develop this and you develop this with your partner, what are some challenges that you saw along the way, Roy, in putting this together? Are there any, things that stand out in you and Bill's process as you were building this, or maybe that you're facing now?
Yes, and I would say, as in every company, it doesn't matter where you are, as a startup, I'm saying, okay?
Sure.
Where it doesn't matter what area you're in and what your product is, but there's two main challenges that you have to deal with all the time.
Sure.
And one is market product fit, and the other one is employee and team building.
Sure.
And what I would highly recommend, my own personal opinion for whatever it's worth, I would say, first and foremost, do not be blinded by the love of the product.
I like that.
Too many companies have gone under because people were too blinded by love of the product, and they kept, like the three monkeys, eyes over their ears, over their eyes, over their mouth, about what's going on in the market. Love your product, but keep an eye on the market and adapt the product based on what you hear from the market and what's needed from the market. So that's point number one. That's a challenge, which is a continuous challenge all the time. The second thing is, hire your team by talent. Do not cut corners. You are not rich enough to pay cheap.
Right.
And when you cut corners, you're going to end up paying twice, and paying twice by time to market, by lost time, and because things don't get done, and by employees that might not be the best fit, and you'll have to make a very uncomfortable change around that. And then once you have that team in place, do not micromanage. Your job is not to do your employees' job for them. Your job is to open the roadblocks and let your team soar. If you open the roadblocks and you let them do their job, what you hire them to do, trust me, you're going to get great results. So I think these two challenges of market product fit and then team building are the same across every company. And if you get those two right, you stand a above 50% chance of being successful.
Yep, absolutely. I love that, the way you put that, in terms of loving your product or service, but being aware and being mindful of the market, and the changes, or the adaptability, I should say, of the consumer and the consumer market.
Yes.
And yeah, I see that a lot. I saw that as a banker. I saw that a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners fall in love, and so deeply, madly in love with their product or service, which isn't necessarily a bad thing in itself, but they do so with blinders on. And so
Yes.
they then believe that their product or service is the end all be all, and they don't evolve or adapt it to customer needs and desires. And by not doing that, I have seen a lot of businesses fail,
Yep.
from that. And so, yeah, that is critical. And then share with me an example, Roy, of cutting corners in terms of with people, because that's always intriguing for me, someone who works in career transition and helping people in that regard, and companies find talent. And I've seen that firsthand. So I agree with you that when you cut corners and you try to hire cheap, or you try to do these type of things, you end up paying for it on the back end. Can you share an example of that, and how that can be impactful to a business?
Yeah, I'll give you a simple example. I mean, look at developers.
Yeah,
Good developers are expensive,
sure.
especially if you're on the coasts, East Coast, West Coast.
Right.
They are very expensive. So if you try to save $20, $30, $40,000 a year on hiring a less expensive developer because it's expensive, you might end up with having somebody who can write code, but the quality of the code or the speed of writing the code is not what you need for the speed you need to go to market and for the level of product that you need based on number of bugs that will come out of it and stuff like that. And then you end up paying, 3 times what you thought you would pay just because of that. While if you would have paid the additional $20, $30, $40,000 a year for hiring a top-notch blue chip kind of developer, you would have gotten a product out way faster. You would have had it with way better code because it's a different level of a person, and that means shorter time to market and less bugs.
Yep. Absolutely. No, thank you for doing that, because I think a lot of people in MYB community, yeah, need to hear that type of example, and how, and that goes across the spectrum, across industry and that sort of thing. So, yeah,
Yep.
thank you for sharing that. Roy, as we draw to our conclusion, I appreciate you sharing such great content, such rich content today on the Minding Your Business podcast. You spoke earlier about family, for yourself and for Bill, and I've spoken about it as well. Uh, how important is family to you as you develop your businesses and you've sold them, and things like that? What role and importance does family play in that?
Number one,
Yeah,
and I'm not saying that just as a anecdote or to sound nice, because
sure.
it really is. Anybody who's ever founded a company as an entrepreneur knows that it's only crazy people who do it. No normal person will ever do it.
Right.
Because you
Right.
literally work 25 hours a day, 8 days a week, nonstop.
Right.
And at least for the first 1 to 2 years, you do not get paid because there's
Right.
no money. you need to first create a product. You need to show viability before you get seed funding from VCs or angels. You need to show a bunch of other stuff. And even when you get that initial seed money, it's more focused on hiring people to help you, not on paying your bills. So if you do not have your partner, it doesn't matter, age, sex, or anything else, but if you do not have a partner that is shoulder to shoulder with you and is willing to go through the highs and lows of creating a company for the first few years, because my wife likes to say that I'm the biggest adrenaline junkie she's ever met, because it's like a roller coaster.
Right.
You can in the same day you can go from peaks to deeps 2, 3, 4 times, like ping pong. You talk to somebody in the morning and he says, "Yep, I'm coming in with $1 million. I love your product." And then 2 hours later he says, "I thought about it again, and you might be a bit too early for me, and I want to hold out." And then the product, the developers say, "We're rolling out a week in advance. We got it fixed." But then that evening they say, it blew up. We didn't figure out something. We need to delay it now by a month. The highs and lows are so extreme in the same day. And all of that while working 24 hours a day and not getting paid. And, that you need to sustain that for way more than a year. Anybody who doesn't have the ability to sustain that for a year, don't even try it, my friends, because you're never going to succeed. If you don't have that kind of support from your significant other, you're going down. There's no way you can sustain yourself. So I've always said it to people that I talk to. The number one person who receives all the credit for every company that is successful is the spouses of the entrepreneurs, not the entrepreneurs themselves. Because it's when you're fixated on your product, it's easy to work 24 hours a day because you don't feel the time go by. Because you're totally engrossed in what you're doing. But when you have to take care of the house and the kids and work and bring in money and do everything else while your significant other is doing the work, you deserve the medal.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. That's a great way to put it. That's great perspective and insight there, Roy. Roy Stein, founder, a co-founder of BabelBark. Make sure, MYB, that you go to your app store, whether you've got Google or Apple, whatever your platform is. Go download it today. It's free, and then there's a premium subscription. Get the premium subscription if you have a pet or pets. Use the app and then communicate with Roy through the website, and there'll be communication and contact info in the show notes for you. So go there, communicate with Roy, let him know that you heard him right here on the Minding Your Business podcast, and share with him your thoughts and your experience with using the platform. That's invaluable, as we all know, as business owners, as entrepreneurs, is to get that real life and real time feedback. So do that for us, if you would. Go and get the app today. It's BabelBark. Go get it. You can go to the website. Now, the website is what? Is it BabelBark.com?
Yep. So, and that's, it's BabelBark, BabelBark.com.
Yep. Excellent. So go there, check it out, but also go on your phone, download the app, use it. If you have pets, if you're looking to purchase a pet or get a pet during this downtime, during these quarantine social distancing times, if you're looking to get you a friend, a pet, go ahead and get the app now so you can get familiar with it, so that you'll be ready when you add on that addition to your family. So, Roy, I can't thank you enough. I know you're extremely busy, but thank you for taking time to be here on the Minding Your Business podcast. Safe living for you and your family. Definitely wish you all the very best. Wish you the best personally and professionally. If I could be a resource, let me know. And I look forward to speaking with you again here in the future.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And thank you for having me.
All right. Excellent. Have a great day, Roy, and we'll talk soon.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. All right. So that was Roy Stein with BabelBark. That is BabelBark.com. Go there right now. When you get done listening to the podcast, go to BabelBark.com. Check it out. Learn more about the platform for creating efficiencies when operating with your various pets and housing the correct information and getting information that can be critical and having that in a one-stop shop. And so great insight, great perspective from Roy. We thank him so much. Thank you all so much for supporting the podcast and for listening. Give us five star on Apple. That helps us continue to push the envelope and get great content out throughout the community. So I thank you so much, Champ Ron, the Mind Your Business podcast. We want to continue to bring great guests to you and great content. So I hope that you're getting great value and insight and perspective as you listen to these various episodes. Email me if you want to connect, Ron at themybpodcast.com. That's Ron at themybpodcast.com. And of course, we are brought to you by the Binge Podcast Network. Shout out to everybody that's on the Binge, holding it down. Great shows, great content sharers, great podcasters on the Binge Podcast Network. TheMYBpodcast.com is where you can go to get more information on me as well as the podcast. And so Brand Pod, make sure you check out Brand Pod. I started that brand working with businesses as well as individual brands, mostly with banks right now, but I work with businesses to help set up your own podcast platform. And it's so critical in these unprecedented and uncertain times that you connect with your audience and your target audience and target market. They're not all on your social media. If you just want to talk, if they are, you just want to talk to those few people on social media, then that's fine. Show me your business at the end of the year and what growth that you made. So if you're concerned that your business isn't growing and it's fairly stagnant, you may be just talking to the same people over and over again, hoping that you're going to convince them and change their mind. Well, you've got to reach new markets. You got to reach where your actual target market is. You know, it always surprises me when a business owner doesn't know their true target audience, and then they're not willing to go to those people. It's easy to just sit for free and just talk to the same people over and over again, and then hope that they change. But that's where a lot of people make their mistake and their business never launches, because all they want to do is post for free on Facebook and Instagram and hope something catches. But hope is not a strategy. All right. Let's work on a strategy to set up your own podcast platform, which doesn't cost a lot of money and is not as hard or as challenging or as time consuming as you may think. So I want to work with you for you to start your own podcast platform that you own that is different than posting on social media. Because if all you're doing is post on social media, that platform owns that content. When you post to Facebook, you post to Instagram, you're doing TikTok videos, those terms and conditions say that they own that content. That's theirs, not yours. It's theirs once you post it there. All right. So your live videos and all that, that's their content. That's their real estate. You need to have your own real estate. All right. That's where your podcast comes into play, because once you have your own content that's saved, that's on your RSS feed, that's where you get into your own ownership. So own your content and connect with your target audience that's not on your social media feeds and timelines. Go to Brand Your Pod, BrandYourPod.com, brandyourpod.com. Listen, I'm going to get out of here. Check us out. Thank you so much for all your support. And we're going to catch you on the next time on the next episode of the Mind Your Business podcast. Go be great.